Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our devotions this evening. I'm going to start a short series on the Psalms, and I'm going to begin at the beginning. And so I want to read to you the first Psalm. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Not so the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction. Well, I don't know if you've watched the service from Sunday morning, Sunday the 19th, but in the sermon there I noted that in contrast to churches in the West, the church in developing countries are growing at a tremendous rate, despite having none of the resources that we take for granted. The resource that they depend on is prayer. I think it was John Wesley that said that God does nothing on earth but in answer to prayer. I'm not sure if that's right, but the point I think is well made. I've said before that our prayers, more than anything else, reveal the extent of what we're really trusting God for. If I'm honest, it wouldn't be the first time when I've been in my study getting started on my sermon preparation and the Holy Spirit has checked me and made me stop what I'm doing and slow down in prayer to seek His guidance and His voice. We tend to have too much confidence in our own abilities to get stuff done. And whilst the Bible does say that God has given all of us different gifts and different abilities, it never suggests that those gifts and abilities should be used apart from God's authority, empowering, or instruction. Maybe like me, you've found the lockdown a rich source of material for prayer. I know that as a family we are praying more than ever before. There is so much more that feels really immediate in need of prayer. We think of our church family. We think of those whom we know who are vulnerable, who are working on the front line. We think of our nation and the crisis that we are in, the crisis of health, the crisis of leadership, all these things that are so urgent and pressing. Maybe like me, you've also felt the need then, in light of all of that, to learn to pray in a deeper way. As a congregation, we've committed ourselves to a programme of mission over the next decade. But that mission will be ineffective if it is not birthed, nourished and sustained in prayer. So the issue of prayer is crucial for us as individuals and also corporately as a church, and also for the sake of our community who are lost without Christ. So I, for one, really want to learn to pray better. And what better time than in lockdown? But if I'm honest, a lot of books about prayer serve only to make you feel even more useless and inadequate, because you read them and you realise that you're not having the same experience as some great praying saint of old. The truth is that most of us find prayer more difficult than we imagine that it should be. Eugene Peterson puts it well when he writes that the non-praying world in which we live is a pushing, shoving, demanding world. Voices within and without harass, insisting that we look at this picture, that we read that headline, that we listen to this appeal, that we feel this guilt. In prayer we intend to leave the world of anxieties and enter a world of wonder. We decide to leave an ego-centred world and enter a God-centred world. We will to leave a world of problems and enter a world of the mystery of the presence of God. But it's not easy. We're used to anxieties, egos, and problems. We're not used to wonder, God, and mystery. I think that's one of the reasons that I love the Psalms. Whilst we think of them only as songs, they are in fact the prayer book of the Bible. And they're written in part to teach us how to pray. And right from the very start, you learn that they understand that we don't really know how to pray. And so the first two Psalms, get us ready to pray. Psalm 1 is neither a worship song nor a prayer. It is simply a commentary on how life works. The basic premise of the psalm is that there are two kinds of people in the world, the wicked and the righteous. That's kind of Bible shorthand for those who pay no heed to God and his ways, and those who love God and who are trying to live in accordance with his ways, however imperfectly we do that. What this psalm is telling us is that all of life works according to these two competing worldviews. But what does that have to do with prayer? Well, remember, Psalm 1 and Psalm 2 are what we call gateway psalms. They are our entrance into the prayer book of the Bible. They get us ready to pray. And what Psalm 1 tells us is that prayer flows from a particular kind of life. Firstly, it's a life that has certain negative commitments. A praying person must be a person who has committed themselves not to walk, stand, or sit with the wicked. Alec Motyer, the Old Testament scholar, says that these three verbs are in the perfect tense, so they speak of a fixed attitude or decision that reflects three aspects of life. Walk refers to that which is habitual. It's what we might call our lifestyle, the things that we do naturally without really thinking, they just come naturally to us. Stand refers to stand up and being counted. In this context, it's about taking a stand for the things that the wicked take a stand for. Sit is to be so in tune with the lifestyle and worldview of the wicked that you become associated with them, that people assume that you are among the wicked because you're so like them. Secondly, the life that prayer flows out of is a life with certain positive commitments. A praying person must be a person who is committed to Torah. The word is most often translated as law, but more broadly it means instruction. In Proverbs 4, it's the word that's used to describe the kind of good advice that a father would give a son. A praying person, to be a praying person, must be committed to living according to God's instructions. And that's a challenge. But that commitment is also not mere duty. Rather, a praying person loves God's instruction. God's instruction gives them pleasure and delight. They cannot wait to obey it. The righteous person, that is the praying person, is like a tree that has deep roots in God's ways and is fed and nourished by those ways. And prayer is the result. When I go out for a walk, I basically go up on the canal and walk to the Falkirk Wheel and back. I get up onto the canal by walking up a hill over a path. It's not an official path. There is actually another path that you can go, but it's a lot longer and you have to go quite a bit in the opposite direction and then turn back onto the canal. The path that I go on is not meant to be there at all. It's not in any way official. It has become a path over the years as more and more people have worn down the vegetation until there's just like a dirt track going up the grass, up the hill. And as I was walking on the other morning up that path, it just struck me how much that is a lesson for how we learn to walk the path of prayer. In short, we make the path by walking it. There's no shortcut to becoming a praying person. Being a praying person is the fruit of a life that is deeply rooted in the ways of God. Paradoxically, prayer is not only the fruit of that, it's one of the things that helps us to become deeply rooted. When we are deeply rooted in God's ways, walking in His ways will teach us to pray, and praying will teach us to walk God's ways. We make the path by walking it. Thanks for listening tonight.